The World Economic Forum took place in Davos over the last few days, and a whole bunch of interesting stuff came out of it. Some really, really interesting commentaries about the situation in Venezuela happened, which we may talk about a little bit later in the week, but that's not what I want to talk about today. Michael Dell of Dell Computers was asked about his view on this idea floated by Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez to have a top marginal tax rate of 70%. And Michael Dell, not surprisingly, said he doesn't support it, which is totally fine. I mean, he stands to be taxed a lot with something like that. But he also claimed that it doesn't work. He actually says, tell me some place where such a high top marginal tax rate worked. And I'm going to play the video for you. And it is just so delightful to see Michael Dell instantly schooled by MIT professor Erik Brynjolfsson, who explained that, hold on a second, it actually has worked in the United States. And this is just so good. Let's take a look at the entire moment from the panel. Michael Dell being asked the question, then saying, well, where has anything like that worked? And then the professor explains to him, well, it's actually worked in the United States where you've built your business.
There are growing calls to address these inequalities, particularly the wage inequality, with more taxes. In particular, in the United States, there's been a call by Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez to tax people earning over $10 million at a 70% tax rate. The current top rate in the United States is 37%. Michael Dell, do you support this?
I just want to say I'm thrilled that they're asking.
Wow. Well, look, I mean, my wife and I set up a foundation about 20 years ago, and we would have contributed quite a bit more than a 70% tax rate on my income, on my annual income. And I feel much more comfortable with our ability as a private foundation to allocate those funds than I do giving them to the government.
All right.
So no, I'm not supportive of that.
Well, Keith.
And I don't think it would help the growth of the U.S. economy.
Oh, that's interesting. And can you say a little bit more about why? Why you don't think it would?
Well, name a country where that's worked, ever.
United States.
Briefly, in the 80s.
No. From about the 1930s through about the 1960s, the tax rate averaged about 70%. At times it was up as high as 95%. And those were actually pretty good years for growth. So I don't have a strong opinion on that proposal. A lot of the devil is in the details. But I think there's actually a lot of economics that suggests that it's not necessarily going to hurt growth.
Yeah, so let's talk about the facts, right? Because as Professor Brynjolfsson is saying there, he's not taking a position on the particular proposal of Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, which I don't even think rises to the level of a proposal. She floated the idea of the 70% top rate, didn't even mention at what tax bracket, at what income level it would kick in. It is undeniably true, regardless of what your opinion is of such a tax policy, that the United States has a long history of high top marginal tax rates. It doesn't mean that the government takes 70% of tons of people's money. It means that very high earners pay a high marginal tax rate only on the income they earn above certain thresholds. It's also true that the U.S. has had many periods of growth and prosperity and low unemployment while they also had some of those high marginal tax rates. So it's not incompatible to have economic prosperity and high top marginal tax rates on very rich people with high income. That's not an argument about the morals and ethics of such a proposal, right? You could be for it or against it on a number of different bases, but what we know is that we have had that type of taxation in the US and it didn't destroy the economy. It's simply true. Then you get to part two of the argument, which is that actually we can assess whether that is a good policy for an economy to put in place. We know that multiple studies point out that high marginal tax rates on top earners are good for the economy. If your goal is to maximize government revenue, there are many studies, including one from MIT, among many, but the MIT one is one that we've looked at more closely, which says that 73% is the top marginal tax rate where you maximize total tax revenue. taking into account that if you go up to 100% tax rate, people stop working, right? When you take into account that other very high numbers can incentivize people to leave the US and try to find lower tax places to live or whatever. Where you kick in that top tax rate, whether it should be at $1 million, $5 million, 20 million, whatever the case may be, that is more up for debate, and there are different views on it. And it is really easy on this issue to get different positions confused. There's whether we think it's right morally to take from the rich. Okay, we can debate that. Then you get to the actual economic issues. One is, has this worked before? The answer is yes, it has. I mean, it has. If the goal is to maximize government revenue, we have some idea about what that top marginal tax rate should be, and it should probably be in the low 70s. The most popular argument I've seen lately against such a proposal is if you do that, rich people are going to leave the country, and the government is going to lose out on all their tax revenue because they won't be in the US and they won't be paying taxes here anymore. That might be the case with some people, but the reality is that, first of all, if you move out of the US, you don't just stop paying taxes. Okay, a lot of people don't understand this. It's complicated, but if you're a US citizen who earns money from a US corporation and you move abroad, you still have to file an American tax return. You still have to pay taxes. You can reduce your tax liability with things like the foreign earned income exclusion, with the foreign housing deduction that exists. But most of these American rich people, mostly rich dudes, they're not actually ready to relinquish their US citizenship, assuming that they find another place to get citizenship, which is really the way to stop paying taxes in the United States. So this wealthy flight horror story that you hear from the right, it's just not super realistic in large numbers. And it also ignores the fact that a lot of these rich people have friends and family mostly in the United States. And even if they could avoid all American taxes by going elsewhere, not all of them are going to abandon the one place that they've lived their entire lives where everyone they know lives. So it's merely a horror story that is not realistic, and it's not a good argument for tax policy one way or the other. But Michael Dell just schooled in real time. This is what should be done to Trump and to Sarah Huckabee Sanders when they tout these lies. I just love it. Let me tell you about today's sponsor, ZipRecruiter. Hiring can be very time consuming. You post a job on a bunch of online job boards, you get a bunch of the wrong resumes, then you have to sort through all of those resumes just to find a few people with the right skills and experience. Those job sites that overwhelm you with the wrong resumes are not smart. The smart thing is to go to ziprecruiter.com/Pakman, because unlike other job sites, ZipRecruiter finds qualified candidates for you. Its powerful matching technology will scan thousands of resumes. It will identify people with the right skills and education and experience, and then it will actively invite them to apply to your job so that you actually get qualified candidates quickly. No wonder ZipRecruiter is rated #1 by employers in the US from hiring sites on Trustpilot with over 1,000 reviews. And right now, my listeners and our viewers can try ZipRecruiter for free at this exclusive web address, ziprecruiter.com/Pakman. And if you love this show, show your support for ZipRecruiter by going to ziprecruiter.com/PAKMAN. One more time. That is ziprecruiter.com/Pakman. It's the smartest way to hire.